Hi, so I'm Megan Kaur. I'm the Assistant Director in the Office of International Student Scholar Services here at Rollins College, and I'm going to be walking you through the OPT application process. I know it's really confusing for a lot of students, and so my goal is that you'll be able to feel better prepared and understand better how to fill out the paperwork that you need to submit to us. So to start with, you're going to want to go to the ISSS website, which you can see here on Rollins. And then you're going to look for the OPT form. You're going to click on employment. And then you're going to scroll down to the bottom here. And you see where it says optional practical training. We're going to click on that. And then that brings up the checklist here. And all the paperwork that you're going to need. So from here, you'll be able to open all of these documents and go through them. Oops. For our purposes, most of the stuff is already open, so I'm not going to necessarily go through each and everything here on the link just to make it easier. So the certificate of course completion, obviously that's going to go through your academic advisor who's going to be signing off on that, or the registrar's office. The USCIS photo requirements, you are required to get 2 passport style photos, which you can do from any Walmart or CVS or Walgreens, something like that. Then you have the actual OPT application checklist here that goes over everything, and that's where you're going to indicate when you want your OPT to start or when you would like to request that it starts. It has to fall sometime during your 60-day grace period, though, which begins the day after your I-20 ends and then goes exactly 60 days after that. So, the first thing that you'd be looking at and needing to get is I-765. So I'm going to scroll over. There we go. To the I-765 here. And I'm going to try and walk you through it. First, pretty much we always will select initial permission to accept employment unless you are applying for STEM OPT or you've previously been issued an optional practical training card. So we're going to assume that we haven't done that before. We're going to select that. Next, you're going to fill out your name. It has to be exactly what's in your passport. So if you do have a middle name, it must be on there. If you have multiple last names, it must be here. Okay? So we're going to fill this out. I'm going to be making some of this stuff up. And then these other fields over here are optional. You don't have to go through those. Oops. Okay, for the U.S. mailing address, this should be where you want to have your OPT emailed to, or expect that will be available potentially 3 to 5 months after you graduate. So if it's someone else, if you be sending this like to a friend's address or a family member's address, and you're not going to physically be present at that address, make sure you put their name here. Otherwise, you're going to want to put in the regular address. So for the purpose of this, I'm just going to use Rollins address. However, if you live on campus and you are graduating, obviously you won't be able to live on campus after you graduate. So it's best that you not use the Thousand Holt Ave address, that you have something else off campus. And then if this is the same if the mailing address is the same as like the physical address where you're physically living, where you just have to select that. Otherwise, you're going to need to fill in another address here. So now scrolling down a little bit more, you'll see the alien registration number and the USCIS online account number. Both of these you can leave blank. If you don't know what they are, they don't apply to you. So next we have gender. For the purpose of this form, I'm filling out as male because I've used John Doe. Marital status you have to fill out. If you have ever filed this form before, you will indicate yes. If you have never filed it before, you're going to indicate no. Since I selected initial, I'm going to say no. Has the Social Security Administration ever officially issued a Social Security card to you? Many students will already have a Social Security number. If that's the case, if you already have one, you just have to select yes, and then you'll be able to skip some of the questions. If you've gone your 4 years or 2 years and you haven't worked on campus, haven't done an internship where you've gotten paid, then you can select no. And then basically this is a nice new feature that they've done. They'll process your Social Security Administration automatically. So they'll send this information over to the Social Security Administration, who will issue you a Social Security number and send that directly to your house at the address that you provided on the form. So it's a nice service. I'm going to pretend that I already have one. And so I will have to, if I already have one, I have to go up here and I have to fill in whatever that is. Okay. Then everybody has to also fill in number 14. So in this case, since I already have a Social Security number, I'm going to say no. If I didn't have a Social Security number already and needed to get one, this number 13B would be blank, this part right here. And then on 14, I would select yes. For 15, I would select yes, that I'm approving them to send that information to the SSA so they can get me a card. And then I would also be filling in the father's and mother's name down here if I needed them to. Oops. Moved ahead a little too fast. So last thing on this form, we're going to fill in our country of citizenship or nationality. So if you have multiple, I'm going to pretend that I'm just from the UK and that I don't have any other passports anywhere else. If I am also a citizen and have a passport from France, for example, I would also write France here. If you have more than those two, you would follow these instructions and use part 6, additional information, to fill that in, which I will show you at the end. So now we're going to finish up this page, this next page, where we fill in a lot of information. We're going to start now with the city, town, or village of birth. So I'm going to pretend that I was born in London. I know a lot of places you won't really have states or provinces or anything like that. If you did, you would fill that in here, though. I don't really know what the state or province for London might be, so I'm just going to put that in for pretend. And then again, I would put in my country. And then next I have to put in my date of birth. So we'll say 03. All right. And then next we have your I-94. So I'll show you in a second how to find that number. But for now, let's pretend we already have it and we already filled it in. Or we already pulled the I-94 and we're going to fill this in right now. So there we go. Next, you'll have to have your passport number out there. So we'll fill this in. Travel document number, you can leave blank. That's usually not required. The country, we'll fill that as the UK because they're the ones who issued my passport. I will be looking at the passport now to check my expiration date. And then this also comes from my I-94. I'm looking to see what was my last date of arrival into the US. I'm going to pretend that I last came over spring break. So there we go. And then the place of your last arrival into the US will be the airport or land entry that you went through immigration and customs. So I'm going to pretend that I flew from the UK to JFK first, and so I would put in New York. You don't have to put in the airport itself, you can just put in the city. And then when I entered the US last time, I obviously showed my I-20 and my passport and F1 visa. So my immigration status at last arrival is going to be F1 student. And then my current immigration status, because it's not like I went through and did a change of status or something like that, would be F1 student. And then next, I'm going to look at my I-20. It's in the top left-hand corner, I believe, where you're going to see the CVIS number. It always starts with the N. It doesn't have a hyphen, though, like you see here on the I-20. It usually goes N00 and then a series of numbers. All right, so next we got to fill in what category, like how we, or why we think we're eligible for this work authorization and what specific category we're applying for. For anybody who's doing regular post-completion OPT, which means the 1 year of work authorization after you graduate, it's always C, lowercase c, 3, and then capital B. If you were applying for STEM OPT, it would be C3C, actually. If you were applying for STEM OPT, you would have these next three boxes to also fill in. The degree would be like bachelor's or master's of arts, science, whatever. The employer's name, so you'd have to talk with usually your HR office at the employer's office or at your employer, and they will be able to provide this information. You need to know the name as it appears in the E-Verify program, and then the employer's company identification number that is associated with their E-Verify program. But regular OPT students do not fill these boxes in. All right, so now, on this page, there's really only a couple things I have to fill in. You're going to select that you can read and understand English. Then you're going to want to put in your contact information. Most students have, a regular cell phone, so that's the phone number that you're going to want to include. I recommend that if you don't have different ones, you always put your cell phone in here as your daytime phone, and then fill it in here as well, and then do your email address. So oops. You can see the form is very particular about whether you're putting in hyphens and dashes and things like that. So you just want to be careful. For your applicant's email address, you all will have obviously your Rollins email, and that will work for a time after you graduate. However, I do recommend that you use another personal email address. Most students stop checking their Rollins email after they graduate, and then if anything were to be sent to that address, you wouldn't have access. So, whatever your Gmail account is or something like that. All right, so next, once you're finished completely with I-765 and you print out the form, this is where you're going to sign in box 7A. You have to make sure that your signature stays completely within the box. Otherwise, it can be a reason for them to reject or deny your application. You can fill this form in since most people usually sign it the exact same day. So we'll put here today's date. will be it. You can skip over this page. You don't have to worry about anything there. You don't have to worry about anything on that page. And now on this page, it will only apply to some people. And the reason I say that is because if you have done any type of CPT, either at Rollins or at another school, whether you've done OPT from a prior degree, if you've ever submitted this I-765 for whatever reason and have had any type of work authorization approved for you, you're going to need to fill in that information here on this section. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to type in here 3/2/27. And again, this only applies if you've actually gotten approved for CPT, OPT, or some other form of work authorization through which you use the I-765 or you got the approval on your I-20. And next you're going to type in what kind of work authorization it was. So let's say I did an internship as an undergrad, and it was full-time over the summer. So that's what the FT stands for. And then I'm going to have to put in the start date. Let's say I started May 15th, 2018, and my end date when I finished was 8/15/2018. And next, I have to put in what level of education that it was associated with. And that was, like I said, that was associated with my undergraduate. So now, that's the only work authorization I have. Say you've done an undergraduate degree, you did CPT and then undergraduate, then maybe you also did OPT, you got your 1 full year, and now you're doing your master's. So you would also put your OPT employment here too. It would be OPT, full-time, whatever your start and end dates were, and then it was associated with your bachelor's. So that's pretty much it. Now you filled out this entire form, you print it out, and like I said, you'll go and sign it where I showed you before. And this is where the link is on the OPT packet that I originally referenced, but you can also just go directly to the uscis.gov website and then click on forms. I-765 is right there. It will take you to this page and you can click on that. So we talked about the I-94, that you need the I-94 to go and pull your, or to fill in the I-765. So if you need to look up your I-94, you're going to go to this website, and the link is also in the OPT packet and checklist. And then you're going to click on Get Most Recent I-94. And then you're going to have to scroll down here to the bottom and click Consent and Continue. Now you can fill in your information to try and pull it. Now, obviously, I'm using a fake name, so I'm not going to be able to pull an I-94, but I'm going to try and walk you through what information you'll be filling in here. So the names and date of birth, passport number, all of that, basically you just need your passport and you should follow exactly what is written on there. So for my person, I had John David as the family, 2 given names, and then the last name was Doe. So even though David might be my middle name, a lot of times the way passports appear, it comes up under the given names. And so that's why you're going to want to put both of them in there. And then my date of birth, I think I said was March 15th, 1997. And then I'm going to fill in my passport number, and I don't remember what exactly I used, and so I'm just going to guess that as that. And then again, the country who issued it for me was the UK. Sorry, it's taking a little while to fill this in. All right. And so again, if this were all information and I was actually had an I-94 for this person, you click on next, and what would appear, it would be a new screen that will say your actual I-94. I'll say I-94 number, and then next would be the status, which would be F1. It will say duration, eligible, length of stay, I think, and then that would be like, it should say D/S, which means duration of status, and then would have like your name, date of birth, your passport number, your country of, passport country of issuance, and it would have your date of arrival, last date of arrival and location. You can also, when you go to that new page, you'll also be able to see your travel history if that is important to you. Once they found the record, though, make sure you print it out. You know, click on the print button. It will open up a new page that is just the I-94, and then you'll be able to print that out from there. So the other forms that you're going to fill out on this for the OPT application would also be potentially here the 1145, which is the e-notification of application or petition acceptance. Again, this form is listed on the website. On the OPT packet. So you don't have to go looking for it, but you still could. You can just go to uscis.gov, click on all USCIS forms, and then search it from the list looking at this number. I'm going to flip over though to this one so I can show you how to fill this in. It's very simple. Again, following what's in my passport, I'm going to put in my name. And then my email address that I want to be notified at. And then my phone number if I'd like to receive text messages. And I don't remember exactly what I used, so I'm just going to guess here. And so that's pretty much it. When you have that filled out, then you'll print it out, and this should go on the very first page of your application. And then the other one that I see a lot of students use, you don't have to use this. This is so you can pay for your OPT application cost by credit card. You also have the choice of using a personal check or using a money order. So money orders, they come from usually the post office. Sometimes you can get those in other locations too, like potentially a bank. It's just hard to say exactly where. Most students I've known have always gone to the post office to get that. If you do have a credit card though and you want to pay, this is also a super easy way to do it that way. So we'll go down here. This first name here should be, again, exactly what's in your passport. So John David Doe. And then this will be the name that appears on the actual card. Most people don't put their middle name, which is why I left that out. Then they need to know what your billing address is, like what address is associated with your credit card. Oops. Once you have this form filled out, that's when you'll sign here. But in the meantime, this should be the address, or I'm sorry, the phone number that you have associated with your card. And of course, your email that is associated with your card. And then next, you'll actually put in the credit card numbers, which is 16 digits. You'll put it in the expiration date. And then what type of credit card it is. So we'll just pretend that it was a Visa. And then here's where it's really important that you make sure you put in the correct amount. The current charge is $410, and so that's why I'm putting that in there. But again, I'll show you on the I-765 USCIS website where you can see what the actual fee is, and I do recommend that whenever you are applying that you do double check that, because it does change. And so we want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information. So once you fill all this stuff in, you're going to print it out, like I said, and you're going to sign there. And so I will go back to this page to show you. here's where you're going to see how much it's going to cost to file. So this is telling you just to submit the I-765 is $410. You do not have to pay this $85 biometric fee. That is only required if you're one of these, if you're filing under one of these. Obviously, if you're applying for OPT, none of these apply. So again, you're paying $410. And that is pretty much it. I'm gonna go back here just to look at that list again. And so this is actual filing procedure information. So like I said, the certification of course completion signed by Student Records is within that list there that you just saw on the other page that has to be filled out. You have the I-765. I do recommend that you also type in the responses rather than filling it in pen and handwriting it. It's just 1,000 times easier to do it that way. And, no matter how great your handwriting is, it has the potential for being misread by the person at USCIS who is deciding your application. So it's just better to make sure that there's no question that they may misinterpret what you're writing. So then again, we need a copy of your passport, biographical page, as well as your visa, your recent I-94, which like I said, you can obtain here, and I showed you how to do that. Your 2-color passport style photos with your name and your I-94 number written on the back in pencil. If you have ever received an EAD card, which is an employment authorization document, because you've had OPT from a prior degree or something like that, that must be included. Here again is the information on making your payments. And then this is about the G1145, which is receiving notifications from text or email from USCIS. And then the last thing here is filling this information out. So I want to see your full name, your signature. Basically, you're authorizing that these are the correct start and end dates that you want. And you're notifying me of any updates of these things, and that I can change your CVIS record with that information. So again, the start date, let's say right now you have a lot of students graduating. If your end date might be May 7th of 2019, so your 60-day grace period would start May 8th of 2019 and go through approximately July 5th. So your start date could be anytime during that period. I generally recommend, though, that if you think that the 60-day end date or the 60-day grace period ends on July 5th, that instead you look to select the date of July 3rd or July 4th actually as your start date, just in case you miscounted, or if USCIS miscounts when they're looking over your application. So let's say you want to use July. I can't type it in here. Okay, so on this, you most likely you're going to print it out and handwrite it, and most students do it that way. And it's not a fillable PDF. And so you would put in whatever your start date is here, say July 1st of 2019. Your end date would be June 30th of 2020. That would be exactly one full year. And then again, you print your name. Here would be like John David Doe. I would, once I print it out, I sign it. And then I would put in my non-Rollins email, which would be the john.doe@gmail.com. And then I need to update put in here my physical living address. Now remember, I'm applying as if I'm still living on campus and that I'm expecting to continue to be able to live on campus. And so I would put in that 1000 Whole Ave address here. Once you have all the documents that are listed up here, and we did it as a checklist to make things easy for you, you will bring all of your documents over to the international office so that we can go and process them. We'll review all of your documents, we'll issue a new I-20 and prepare the packet for you, and then you'll come back in and you'll do all the signatures, and we make copies, and then you'll be able to send it off, okay? So that's pretty much covers this entire process. I hope that it was helpful for you and that you appreciated that step-by-step guidance. If you have any questions for us about any of these things, or about your particular situation, please contact us directly. You can email one of us individually, or you can email our general office account, which is OISSS at Rollins.uiu, or I'm sorry, Rollins.edu. Um, Again, it's OISSS at Rollins.edu. Or you can call us at the office. Our number is 407-691-1158. Or you can stop by and we can help you do the process, or go through the process, or discuss your questions in person. So thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a great day.